Morbid facts. In 2019, a Brazilian gang leader tried escaping from his 73-year prison sentence by disguising himself as his teenage daughter who was visiting. He planned on leaving her behind in his place, but the guards weren't fooled by his disguise and stopped him at the exit. In 1962, a 10-year-old boy from Mexico City found an industrial radioactive capsule and left it in the kitchen cabinet of his home. Within a few months, the boy, his pregnant mother, his 2-year-old sister, and his grandmother all died from severe radiation sickness. In 2013, a Brazilian soccer referee was involved in a heated argument with a player and ended up stabbing him to death. Outraged fans quickly stormed the field before stoning him to death, decapitating him, and putting his head on a stake in the middle of the field. A South African man adopted a baby hippo after rescuing it from a river. 5 years later, the hippo dragged him into that same river and mauled him to death. Last January, a Kansas man died after being shot by his dog in a freak hunting accident. He was sitting in the front seat of his pickup truck when his dog stepped on his rifle in the back seat. In 2011, a 49-year-old Russian woman had a heart attack and was presumed dead. A few days later, she woke up at her own wake and was so shocked that she screamed and had another heart attack, this time dying for real. In 1991, a woman from Thailand accidentally slipped in mud, grabbed a live wire, and was electrocuted to death. Later that day, when her sister was showing the neighbors how the accident happened, she slipped, grabbed the same live wire, and was electrocuted to death. Jack Black's character in the 2006 masterpiece Nacho Libre is based on a real Mexican priest. Sergio Gutierrez Benitez fought as a lucha libre wrestler for 23 years to support the orphanage he founded. While Captain Robert Campbell was a prisoner of the Germans during World War I, he asked the Kaiser if he could visit his dying mother in England. Surprisingly, the Kaiser gave him permission on the grounds that he returned to prison afterwards. True to his word, the captain came back. In April of 1988, the roof of an Aloha Airlines jet ripped off after an explosive decompression at 24,000 feet. A flight attendant named Clarabelle Lansing was sadly thrown from the plane while serving a drink, and her body was never found. But she was miraculously the only fatality, as the plane somehow managed to land safely and spare the other 94 lives on board. There's a tribe in the Amazon rainforest that performs the most painful coming-of-age ritual known to man. In order to enter manhood, the boys must wear gloves containing hundreds of bullet ants for 5 to 10 minutes. The ants are woven into the gloves with their stingers pointing inwards, so the hand is immediately attacked with a barrage of excruciating stings. According to the Schmidt Pain Index, the sting is ranked as the most painful in all of nature, described as similar to being shot, as the boy's arm is often paralyzed for days following the ritual. In order to pass, he must endure the process without shedding a single tear, otherwise he has to start over another day. In some cases, it may take up to 20 attempts to fully complete the horrific ritual. Game of Thrones star Emilia Clarke has survived 2 near-fatal brain aneurysms that have left pieces of her brain missing. She has since founded a charity called Same You, which helps provide treatment for people who have suffered a brain injury or stroke. A baby penguin was born without feathers at a Chinese zoo and was therefore rejected by his parents. But zookeepers found out he just had some digestive issues, so they fed him by hand until he grew his feathers and was soon reunited with his family. Before the year 1772, potatoes were deemed inedible and were only used as hog feed across Europe. But a French soldier who was taken as POW was fed only potatoes during his captivity and survived. Feeling like he should have died, he made it his life's mission to convince the world of the nutritional value of potatoes. And his tomb is often decorated with potatoes as tribute to this day. In 1994, 31-year-old Gloria Ramirez was admitted to a California hospital with symptoms thought to be related to her cervical cancer. She was acting extremely confused and her heart rate was rising rapidly as medical staff did everything they could to return her vital signs to normal. But eventually, nurses noticed a strange oily sheen on Gloria's body, as well as a fruity, garlicky scent emitting from her mouth. Her drawn blood smelled like ammonia and had strange tan-colored particles floating in it. Soon enough, the nurses were having breathing issues and began passing out just from being around her body. Within a few hours, 23 people fell ill and 5 were admitted to the hospital. Ramirez ended up dying from kidney failure and a hazmat crew was called in to transport her body. It turned out she had been taking the extremely toxic substance dimethylsulfone as a home remedy to treat her cancer, the most likely explanation for her poisonous body. In 1935, Grace McDaniels became a circus freak show star known as the Mule no-faced woman and was paid $175 per week. Her severe facial deformity was caused by a cancerous lip tumor that ended up taking her life in 1958. In the 12th century Catholic Church, innocence was judged by dunking the suspect's hand in a pot of boiling water. If God had not healed the wound within 3 days, the suspect was found guilty of the crime. In November of 2004, Peter Porco was struck in the head 16 times with an axe while he was asleep in his New York home. But he miraculously woke up the next morning, made breakfast and coffee for himself, and finally fell dead while picking up his newspaper. He had been completely unaware of his battered state and the pools of blood all around him. The Sweet Track is a Neolithic timber walkway discovered in England that's right around 6,000 years old. It was part of a network of wooden tracks built to provide a dry path across the marshy ground, and is known as the oldest surviving man-made walkway in the world. Found in the Judean desert in Israel, this 9,000-year-old stone mask is said to be the oldest known intact mask in the world. This 3,000-year-old foot of an Egyptian mummy was found with a prosthetic toe. The amazingly crafted object is likely the earliest prosthesis ever found. Here's a comparison of the world's oldest underground train station in London 160 years ago versus today. The Greenland shark is believed to be the oldest living vertebrate species in the world. This specimen is believed to be over 400 years old, meaning it was roaming the depths before the Pilgrims even entered America. On one night when Charlize Theron was 16 years old, her drunken alcoholic father was firing bullets into the door to her room, threatening to kill her and her mom. While he was reloading, Charlize's mother grabbed her own handgun and killed him. The shooting was ruled as self-defense and she didn't face any charges. In 1704, Sir Isaac Newton predicted that the world as we know it would end around the year 2060. He believed humanity would then progress into an era of divinely inspired peace. A tiger's tongue is so rough that it can lick your skin off with only a few licks. At over 3,500 years old, the senator was the name of the oldest bald cypress tree and the 5th oldest tree in the world overall. But it was accidentally burned down in 2012 when 26-year-old Sarah Barnes lit a fire inside the tree to see the meth she was about to smoke. There was a famous Jewish boxer named Salomo Aruch who was imprisoned at Auschwitz. He was forced to fight fellow prisoners and the loser was sent to the gas chambers. He survived more than 200 fights over a 2-year span until the camp was liberated. 80% of the males born in the Soviet Union in 1923 were killed during World War II. This is a group of teenage kamikaze pilots posing with a cute puppy on the day before their suicide missions in 1945. In 1951, an atomic bomb cameraman accidentally ripped off his safety goggles a few seconds before the bomb exploded. With no time to spare, he immediately covered his eyes with his hands, and when the bomb detonated, he saw the bones of his hands through his closed eyelids just like an X-ray. This record-breaking 10-inch long tadpole found in an Arizona swamp never evolved into a bullfrog. Experts say it's most likely due to a hormonal mutation that'll prevent it from metamorphosing until death. Bill Gates has a periodic table in his office that's complete with samples or representations of all the elements. Filmed almost 3,000 feet deep in the waters of Japan, this alien-like siphonophore will make you never want to swim in the ocean again. Jesus. Qatari fishermen were treated to this extremely rare devil horns eclipse during extraordinary sunrise conditions. Australian scientists have created the rarest meatball in the world by cultivating flesh using the genetic sequence of an extinct woolly mammoth. But no one's willing to try it since the 5,000-year-old proteins might be toxic to humans. Standing at over 10 feet tall and weighing 1,200 pounds, Gigantopithecus was the largest ape to ever walk the earth. It went extinct around 100,000 years ago, meaning it coexisted with humans at a point in history. What you're looking at is a single living cell. Valonia ventricosa is the largest single-celled organism on the planet. When fully grown, it can be the size of a tennis ball, as its structure has baffled scientists for centuries. India's Statue of Unity is the world's largest standing statue by far. The 600-foot-tall bronze monument is nearly twice the size of the Statue of Liberty and cost over $400 million to construct. Only first explored in 2009, Vietnam's Hang Son Doong is the largest known cave system in the world. It's more than 3 miles long and 600 feet high, which is so massive that it literally has its own weather system. Many Japanese people who witnessed the nuclear blast in Hiroshima were blinded instantly. Some were even left with permanent atomic bomb cataracts like this one. While his comrades were being shot all around him, a Canadian piper named Bill Millen was playing the bagpipes during the storming of Normandy. German snipers later said they didn't shoot him because they thought he had gone mad. When the Soviet Union was pushing towards Berlin, a Nazi SS soldier was forced to play piano for his captors. They made it clear to him in sign language that he would be executed the moment he stopped playing. He played for 22 straight hours, after which he collapsed in tears. They congratulated him, then shot him. In 1663, part of the fossilized skeleton of a woolly rhinoceros was dug up in Germany. Nicknamed the Magdeburg Unicorn, it resulted in one of the worst fossil reconstructions in human history. This was the sample case used by a neon salesman circa 1935. Dating back at least 12,000 years, Iran's ancient village of Maymun is said to be a primary human residence in the Iranian plateau. Close to 200 families still live in the hand-dug homes within the rocks, some of which have been inhabited for over 3,000 years. After 25 years of dealing with a strange dip in the floor beneath his couch, a man from Plymouth, England finally decided to investigate. After digging down into his home's foundation, he found a 33-foot deep medieval well with a 500-year-old sword inside. The sword's super lame looking, I wasn't going to include it, but there you go. The tallest person in recorded history was a young man from Illinois named Robert Wadlow. A mutated pituitary gland resulted in his breathtaking height of 8'11", weighing 440 pounds with a shoe size of 36. In 1940, he died at the young age of 22 from a septic blister on his ankle caused by a poorly fitted iron brace. The world's largest family can be found in India, where father Ziona Chana had 94 children with 39 different wives. This 10-foot wide, 500-pound shell made in Malta set a world record in 2016 for the largest firework ever launched. Costing over $3.5 billion to construct, Saudi Arabia's Abraj Khudai is set to become the largest hotel in the world. It'll feature 4 helipads, 70 restaurants, and 10,000 rooms. In 2013, a young Japanese man began slithering on his parents' floor and acting erratically, claiming he had become a snake. His father then spent the next 2 days violently headbutting and biting him to, quote, drive out the snake that had possessed him. The man eventually died from blunt force trauma. In 2017, Minnesota woman Mona Lisa Perez killed her boyfriend by shooting him in the chest through an encyclopedia at point-blank range. Apparently, they were trying to make a viral YouTube video and didn't expect the bullet to penetrate the book. In 1968, radical feminist Valerie Solanas attempted to assassinate Andy Warhol. She shot him in the liver, spleen, lungs, and stomach, leaving him in a corset for the rest of his life. The woman turned out to be a schizophrenic who called for the extermination of males to create a utopia for women. According to a 1996 Super Mario manga, 1-up mushrooms grow from the bodies of dead Marios, perpetuating the cycle of life and death. In 1971, Fleetwood Mac had to cancel a sold-out show when their guitarist Jeremy Spencer suddenly went missing. He was found a few weeks later with shabby clothes and a shaven head after joining the Children of God, a cult founded by a pedophile that was responsible for the widespread abuse of thousands of children. After delivering important components for the atomic bomb in 1945, the USS Indianapolis was torpedoed by a Japanese submarine off the coast of the Philippines, resulting in the worst shark attack in human history. It started with dead bodies suddenly being pulled underwater, and once first blood was drawn, the initial survivors soon found themselves surrounded by hundreds of sharks. Those without lifeboats were forced to huddle together in groups and attempt to shield themselves, but it only worked for so long. The men could feel the sharks constantly bumping them from below, never knowing when they'd become the next victim. On the third day, dehydration made some of them act delusional and violent, forcing the rest of the group to push them away and leave them to die. After 4 horrific days, the US Navy finally received word of the ship's sinking. Out of the original 1,200 men on board the ship, only 316 made it home alive. Dating back to 1100 AD, the Zhangong Patriarch is a gold-painted papier-mâché statue that was stolen from a Chinese temple in 1995. Just a couple years ago, researchers scanned it and discovered the piece contained the mummified body of a famous Chinese monk. Here's an 18th century ivory carving that depicts the toothworm, a demon from hell that people used to believe was responsible for cavities and toothaches. Shaka bra. Here's an ancient Roman bronze sculpture of a hand giving the hang loose gesture made around the 2nd or 3rd century CE. Just last month, a 30-foot-long Native American canoe was discovered in a lake in North Carolina. It's estimated to be at least 1,000 years old. Thanks to LiDAR technology, archaeologists have been able to peel back the rainforests of Calakmul, Mexico, revealing an ancient Mayan city that was nearly 4 times the size of Manhattan around the year 700 AD. The Lion of Lucerne was built in 1821 as a memorial for the Swiss guards who were massacred during the French Revolution. Mark Twain himself described it as the most mournful and moving piece of stone in the entire world. As NASA's chief sniffer, George Aldridge has the rarest job in the world. Nicknamed Nostradamus, he's in charge of smelling every object that will be sent to the ISS to ensure that nothing smells dangerous or unpleasant. The rarest bar in the world was located inside of a 1,700-year-old baobab tree in South Africa. The 155-foot wide trunk could fit a 15-person full bar until the tree tragically fell over in 2017. Here's an example of an agatized dinosaur bone. It occurs during a rare preservation process where a type of quartz called agate fills in the pores of the bone. This rare elk steak appears to be cooked to perfection. Wait a minute, is that a salad? Get this out of my face. Out of the 40,000 windows within the Twin Towers, only one of them survived 9/11. It's believed to have come from the 82nd floor of the South Tower, one of the 9 floors that was struck by the plane. Lake Superior has an island which has a lake which has an island which has a pond which has a boulder which, when the pond floods, becomes the largest island in the largest lake on the largest island in the largest lake on the largest island in the largest lake in the world. Firefighters in Illinois found a cockroach infestation so massive that they were forced to burn the house to the ground. They even made a ring of fire around the home so that none of them could escape or move to neighboring houses. After years of suffering from a constant runny nose, Kendra Jackson eventually found out that it was fluid leaking from her brain. After a serious car accident in 2013, she'd been losing about a half pint of brain fluid through her nose each day. There's a botanical garden in the UK filled only with plants that can kill you. It's only available through guided tours, during which many people have fainted due to the toxic fumes emitted by the flora. It holds over 100 deadly plants and is classified as the most dangerous garden in the world. Here's a pair of gloves with bladed fingertips from London during the Victorian era. They were likely worn as self-defense gloves by wealthy women who had to take walks by themselves. A Dublin grocery store has a glass floor showcasing an 11th century Viking well that was discovered while the shop was being built. Last year, a perfectly preserved 1,500-year-old era was found nestled between some rocks in Norway. The research team thinks it was encased in ice, then transported downslope as the ice melted. Here's the enormous tusk of a woolly mammoth found in Siberia that was most likely killed by ancient hunters around 12,000 years ago. The 12-angled stone was part of a 700-year-old stone wall inside of an Incan palace. To this day, the joints are so perfectly cut that not even a single sheet of paper can fit between any of the blocks, not to mention its incredible size. These are the most unlikely animal friendships ever seen in nature. In 2013, a Finnish photographer captured the extraordinary friendship between a female gray wolf and a male brown bear. They shared their food and spent several nights together over a 10-day span before parting ways. In 2004, a baby hippo named Owen was swept away from his mother during a tsunami. He then mistook a 130-year-old tortoise for another hippo, and the two became best friends. In 2015, Amur the Russian tiger was given a goat to eat, but miraculously became best friends with him instead. A Turkish pelican became friends with a stray dog who was often seen chilling at the pier all alone. The man who photographed this eventually adopted the dog, but brings him back every day to see his pelican friend. In 2010, a lion, tiger, and bear cub were rescued from a drug dealer's basement in Atlanta. Amazingly, they remained close with each other and even lived in the same habitat for over 15 years. Here are some morbid facts about World War II. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the US government issued Mickey Mouse gas masks in case of a chemical attack. The incentive was to make them appear less scary to kids, but most people don't think it worked. The US originally planned on dropping an atomic bomb on the historic Japanese city of Kyoto. The only reason it wasn't nuked was because US Secretary of War Henry Stimson spent his honeymoon there and said it was too nice to bomb. So instead of Kyoto, they chose Nagasaki. In 1944, a Nazi officer ordered his troops to hold their fire to allow the rescue of an American soldier who had stepped on a landmine. When no one came for help, the officer went to rescue the soldier but stepped on a landmine himself, killing him instantly. April 15th has been a notoriously tragic day in our world's history. Lincoln's assassination, the sinking of the Titanic, the Hillsborough disaster, the Boston bombing, and the Notre Dame Cathedral fire all occurred on April 15th. During the Holocaust, gay males were identified in concentration camps by downward-facing pink triangles. Because of this identification, many of them were still considered criminals after their camps were liberated. As a result, many of them were sent back to prison to serve out their terms. A Japanese soldier named Hiro Onoda was stranded on an island for 30 years without knowing that World War II had ended. His commander had to travel to the island to personally dismiss him in 1974. American Lieutenant John Fox died after deliberately calling an artillery strike on himself. Realizing that German troops were overriding his position, the strike delayed the enemy long enough for other American units to organize a counterattack that ultimately won them the battle. Jonathan Goldsmith, the most interesting man in the world in Dos Equis commercials, is known for his extensive charity work over the years. He's been an advocate for landmine victim support, preventing and curing cancer in dogs, saving the Siberian tiger, and ending child sex trafficking in Cambodia. Brazilian mother Silvia Greco won FIFA's Best Fan Award in 2009 after she was seen in the crowd explaining the entire match to her blind son. Little Caesars founder Mike Ilitch quietly paid for Rosa Parks' rent after she was robbed and assaulted in her own home at the age of 81. He helped her move to a safer neighborhood and continued paying her rent until she died 11 years later. In 1996, researchers found a male orca calf with serious boat injuries to the dorsal fin and spine. But despite being unable to hunt, Stumpy was cared for by as many as 5 different orcapods, providing him with food and protection from boats. During the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster, hundreds of elderly Japanese people volunteered to repair the facility, preventing a complete meltdown. They knew they would die years before the awful effects of the radiation, so they spared younger workers from the lethal exposure. Earlier this year, Minnesota man Chris Qualley entered the Guinness Book of World Records for growing the largest carrot in history. The vegetable weighed a whopping 22.4 pounds, and Chris says he plans on growing the largest pumpkin or tomato next. The golden crowned flying fox is a fruit-eating megabat found only in the Philippines. With a wingspan of up to 6 feet, it's the largest species of bat in the world. Standing at 6'6" and weighing 3,200 pounds, a Belgian stallion named Brooklyn Supreme may have been the most massive horse in history. Growing up to 12 feet in height, the prehistoric-looking corpse flower is the largest flower on Earth. It only blooms once every 7 years and is known to smell like rotting flesh to attract beetles and flies for pollination. Almost 3 times taller than Mount Everest, Olympus Mons on Mars is the largest mountain in our solar system. The weak gravity on Mars allows for mountains to grow higher than on any other planet. Extinct for around 10,000 years, Argentavis was the largest bird ever discovered. With a 23-foot wingspan, it was twice the size of any bird alive today. These are the craziest things that have been found in the ruins of Pompeii. In 2020, an ancient fast food restaurant was uncovered during an excavation. Traces of pork, fish, snails, and rodents were even found in some of the containers. The Sorceress Kit is a box of trinkets discovered in the garden of a Pompeii home. It's believed to have been used as a toolkit by an ancient fortune teller. A loaf of bread made just before the eruption of Mount Vesuvius was discovered in 2018. It even still has a Roman bread stamp on it, which bakeries were required to do to prevent fraud. Here's a 2,000-year-old Beware of Dog mosaic that was discovered in front of the home of a Roman poet. This beautifully intact mosaic was discovered during an excavation just last year. A gold snake bracelet was found on the arm of a woman who was killed during the eruption. On the inside, there's an inscription that reads, "From a master to his slave girl." In 2013, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a 30-year-old man who appears to have survived the initial eruption, only to be killed when he was struck by a large slab of stone. In 1944, a group of American airmen were shot down by the Japanese. Out of the 10 men, 9 of them were captured, tortured, executed, and cannibalized. The only man who evaded capture and survived was future President George H.W. Bush. White House police officer Leslie Kofelt was fatally shot while protecting President Truman from an assassination attempt. But he managed to kill the attacker with a headshot from 30 feet away just before dying. As many as 3 U.S. presidents, as well as Abe Lincoln's son, likely died as a result of contaminated water in the White House. Until 1850, there was no sewage system, and a field of human excrement called night soil flowed freely into the water supply. After President Andrew Garfield was shot, his negligent doctors kept digging into the wound with dirty hands and tools, attempting to find the bullet. They gave him such a bad abdominal infection that he had to be fed through his anus for the last 3 months of his life. His assassin openly confessed at a trial of the shooting, but argued that Garfield's doctors had actually done the killing. Dating back to the early 1700s, the Old Gentleman of Rahe is the oldest diving suit in the world. It was once used to inspect the bottoms of sailing vessels. This is one of the 4,000-year-old preserved wagons found near Lake Savan in Armenia. Made completely out of oak wood, they're the oldest known wagons on the planet. The oldest working battery has been powering a bell at Oxford University since 1840. Nobody knows what the battery is made of and doesn't want to risk destroying it to find out. Discovered in 1963, Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey is the oldest known temple in the world. The site was purposely buried around 9000 BC for unknown reasons. However, this allowed the structures to be preserved for future discovery and research. As of now, ground-penetrating radar has revealed that less than 5% of the site has been excavated. Harriet the Galapagos tortoise was collected by Charles Darwin in 1835 while he was discovering evolution. She died at the age of 175 as a beloved member of Steve Irwin's Australia Zoo.